We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 100. The Mishnah continues, Shachat b'chutz. Let's say one slaughters a bird outside the mikdash, vehela b'chutz, and offers it up outside the Beis HaMikdash. So in that case, chayiv. In that case, he's going to be chayiv for offering it outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi explains, Shachat b'chutz, vehela b'chutz, chayiv af al halo. He's chayiv not only on the shchita b'chutz, on the slaughtering, but even on the offering it up. And Rashi explains, shchita b'chutz ba'of, in terms of slaughtering outside the Beis HaMikdash by a bird, Rav Yerachmana, that's an inclusion from a pasuk, Me'o asher yishchat, it's from the pasuk O asher yishchat. V'ahaloso nami, and on offering it up also, Amrina l'kamon, we're going to say later on, Va'aleim tomar, that comes from the pasuk of Va'aleim tomar, which is la'arif parshios, it connects the parshios, D'chol shemischayev al shchitaso b'chutz, that anytime you're chayiv on slaughtering it outside the mikdash, im chazer v'helan, if he goes ahead and then offers it up, Ohu, O acher, either him or someone else, chayiv, then he's going to be chayiv. And the Mishnah continues, Nimtza comes out the following rule. Derech hechshero bifnim, peturo bachutz. The way that it's kosher inside the mikdash is exempt outside. And derech hechshero mebachutz, the way it's kosher outside, peturo bifnim, is going to be exempt inside. And Rashi explains, Nimtza derech hechshero bifnim, b'gemara parach ha-seifa. The Gemara will ask on the seifa, derech hechshero bachutz chiyuvahu. It says over here in the Mishnah, derech hechshero bachutz, the way that it's prepared properly outside the Beis HaMikdash, but it's really chiyuvo, it's really an obligation. Diof kachim ein lo hechsher b'chutz b'shchita. When it comes to a bird of kachim, there is no way to prepare it outside the Beis HaMikdash through slaughtering it. And so therefore, v'hachi iboy lemisni, what the Mishnah should have said was as follows. Derech chiyuvo b'chutz, the way of obligation, of liability outside the Beis HaMikdash, peturo b'fnim, is the way of exemption inside the Beis HaMikdash. And derech chiyuvo b'fnim, the way of liability inside the Beis HaMikdash, peturo b'chutz, would be the exemption outside the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi now explains what that means. Kagon, for example, shachat bifnim, let's say he would slaughter it inside the Beis HaMikdash, vehela bachutz, and then he would offer it up outside the Beis HaMikdash, so pater. So in that case, one would be pater. He did a shchita bifnim in that case, and really it's malika that's supposed to be bifnim. And shachat bachutz, let's say he slaughters it outside the Beis HaMikdash, vehela bachutz, and offers it outside the Beis HaMikdash, so then chayiv, then we would say he's chayiv in such a situation. And then by malika, molak bifnim, if he does the malika inside the Beis HaMikdash, which is the proper way that it should be done in the mikdash, vehela b'chutz, and then offers it outside the Beis HaMikdash chayiv, he would be chayiv. But molak b'chutz, but if he does the malika outside the mikdash, vehela b'chutz, and offers it outside the mikdash, pater, then he would be pater. And so nimtzat comes out b'makom shemischayev al ha'la'aso, in a situation where he'd be liable for offering it up outside the Beis HaMikdash. Im nasis avoda rishona b'fnim kagon b'malikas pnim, for example, when he does malika inside the mikdash, then he's chayiv for the halah outside the mikdash. So pater al halah asum nasis avod rishona b'chutz. So if the malika, that same malika, would be done outside the mikdash, he'd be pater for offering it up outside the mikdash. And v'derech shemischayev al halah im nasis avoda rishona b'chutz, in a situation where he'd be chayiv on offering it up when the avodah is done outside the mikdash, kagon b'shchita, for example, when shchita is done outside the mikdash, then he's chayiv for the halah outside the mikdash. So peturo b'fnim, if that same shchita was done in the mikdash, he would be pater im nishchat b'fnim v'hela b'chutz. Again, if he slaughtered it inside and offered it up outside the Beis HaMikdash. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Kol shechayovin olav b'chutz, anytime there's liability outside the mikdash, chayovin al kayotze bo bifnim, shehela b'chutz, one would be chayiv in a similar situation bifnim, if he offered it up b'chutz, chutz min hashochet bifnim umala b'chutz, with the exception of one who slaughters inside and offers outside the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi explains, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kol shechayovin olav b'chutz, chayovin al kayotze bo bifnim v'hela b'chutz, b'gemar mefarshla, the Gemara will explain this line of Rabbi Shimon. Umiu now nevertheless says Rashi, Hachi Mashma, this is what it seems to be saying. Kol shechayovin al hala'aso, im nasis avodaso kulo b'chutz, if the whole avodah was done outside the mikdash, chayovin ala b'nasis avodaso rishona bifnim, one would also be chayiv if the first avodah was done in the mikdash, v'yachar kach halayu b'chutz, and then he would offer it outside the mikdash. Chutz min hashochet of bifnim, with the exception of one who slaughters the bird inside the mikdash, v'hela b'chutz, and offers it outside. There, even though if it was all done outside the mikdash, it would be chayiv, but here, the pater here would be pater, because again, vilu dechavase b'chutz havim es chayiv af b'halah. If the same thing would all be done b'chutz, then one would be liable, even in the offering up. And the Gemara says, Hai hechshero, the word hechshero that's used in the Mishnah. Again, the Mishnah said, Nimsa derech hechshero bifnim petura bachutz. It shouldn't be hechshero. Chiyuvohu, the word should be chiyuvo. That's what Rashi pointed out. And the Gemara says, Tani chiyuvo. That actually is what it should say in the Mishnah. It should say the word chiyuvo. Rashi explains, hechshero chiyuvohu devachutz, meaning to say outside, my hechsher shayach l'meimer. There is no proper preparation outside the mikdash. That doesn't even exist. Chiyuvo shayach l'meimer. You could say the word chiyuvo, like I explained earlier, and so therefore, again, as Rashi explained the line, it really should be chiyuvo and not hechshero. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, the Gemara says, Ahecha kai, what exactly is Rabbi Shimon going on? Ilema aresha kai, if he's going on the first case, hamolek of bifnim, that somebody does malik on the bird inside, vehele bachutz chayev, and then if he offers it outside, he's chayev, as the Mishnah said, and molak bachutz, but if he does the malika outside the mikdash, vehele bachutz pater, and offers it outside, he's pater. So if he's going on that, v'yamar le Rabbi Shimon, then Rabbi Shimon would be saying back, ki he'echi depnim mechayev, just like in the case where he does the malika inside, he's chayev, bachutz nami mechayev. When he does the malika outside, he's also chayev. That would be one way of understanding Rabbi Shimon, but the words don't work. Kol shechayavin olav bachutz. It shouldn't say anything that you're chayev on outside. It should say kol shechayavin olav bifnim miboile. It should say anytime you're chayev inside the mikdash, then outside the mikdash you are going to be chayev as well. That's what it should have said if that's what Rabbi Shimon was saying. And so Ella rather will suggest as follows: Ki hechi devachutz lo mechayev. Maybe what he's saying is, just like bachutz there's no chiyuv, bifnim nami lo lechayev. So then bifnim also there's no chiyuv. But again, that also doesn't work with the language of Rabbi Shimon. Hai kol she'ein chayav and ola bachutz mi boile, because then it should say anytime there's no chiyuv bachutz. Ella aseifa kai. Rather, we'll say that Rabbi Shimon is going on the end case of the Mishnah, where it says hashochet of bifnim. Somebody slaughters, not talking about malika, but slaughtering the bird inside the mikdash. Vehela bachutz pater. And if he offers it outside, he's pater. Shachat bachutz, but if he slaughters outside, vehela bachutz, and offers outside, chayev, then he's chayev. And according to that, v'yamar le Rabbi Shimon would be responding and saying back to him, Ki hechi de bifnim lo mechayev, just like you said, bifnim there's no chiyav, bachutz nami lo mechayev. Bachutz also by the shchita, there's no chiyav. But again, it doesn't work in the words of Rabbi Shimon. Hai kol she'ein chayavin mi boile. Then what it should be is kol she'ein chayavin. Again, the language of Rabbi Shimon was kol shechayavin bechutz chayavin, and so therefore that wouldn't work. Ella rather will reverse it. Ki hechi de bachutz mechayev, just like bachutz in this case by shchita you're chayev, bifnim nami mechayev. So inside also chayev. But the problem with that is hakatani. But Rabbi Shimon already says the exact opposite. He says chutz min hashochet bifnim v'hamala bachutz, with the exception of one who slaughters inside and offers it up outside. And so therefore that case is actually an exception. It wouldn't work to say that bifnim nami mechayev. And so the Gemara says, rather, Amar Zeiri says, what Rabbi Shimon is actually talking about is as follows: Shchitas behema balayla ika beinayu. The machlokus between Rabbi Shimon and the Tanakama is actually talking about slaughtering an animal at night. That is the case. And this is the way that you should read the Mishnah. The Mishnah would read as follows: V'chein, there's a line we have to add to the Mishnah. V'chein, and likewise, hashochet behema bifnim balayla. If somebody slaughters an animal inside the mikdash at night, and it's not supposed to be slaughtered at night, v'hela bachutz, and then offers it outside the mikdash, pater, so then exempt, because it really wasn't a good shchita. But shochet bachutz balayla, but if one slaughters an animal outside the mikdash at night, v'hela bachutz, and offers it outside, chayiv, then we would say chayiv. And on that, Rabbi Shimon is responding. Rabbi Shimon says, Kol shechayavin ala bachutz. If you're chayiv bachutz, chayavin al kayotze bo bifnim, then you're going to be chayiv similarly when it would be inside the Beis HaMikdash, v'hela, and then it was offered, again, v'hela bachutz, and then offered outside. Meaning Rabbi Shimon is arguing on the Tanakama and saying, if you're already saying shachat bachutz balayla, and then hela bachutz is chayiv, so then also shachat bifnim balayla and hela bachutz should be chayiv, with one exception to this rule: chutz min hashochet of bifnim v'hela bachutz, with the exception of somebody who slaughters the bird inside the mikdash and then offers it up outside. There the rule doesn't work, because there you'd be chayavin olav bachutz, but again shochet of bifnim and hela bachutz would be pater. And the Gemara continues with another answer to explain Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. Rava Amar Rava says, Kabola b'chlichol ika beinayu. The difference between the Tanakam and Rabbi Shimon is, let's say the blood was received in a vessel that was not sanctified. V'hachi kamar, and this is the way we understand the Mishnah. V'chein ha-mekabel b'chlichol b'fnim. The Mishnah, the Tanakam, says, if one received in a vessel that was not consecrated inside the mikdash, v'hela b'chutz, then offered it outside, pater, to be pater. But ha-mekabel b'chlichol b'chutz, but if he receives the blood in a vessel vessel that wasn't consecrated outside the mikdash, v'hela b'chutz, and offers outside chayiv, then he's chayiv. To which Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Kol shechayavan ala b'chutz, chayavan al kayotze bo b'fnim. It's anytime there's a chayiv b'chutz, there would be a chayiv b'fnim, and so therefore, if by the makabel b'chlichol b'chutz is chayiv, also b'fnim is chayiv, v'hela b'chutz, one would be chayiv on offering it outside. Chutz min hashochet of b'fnim, with the exception of one again who slaughters the bird inside, v'hela b'chutz, and offers it outside. And the Gemara continues, now Hashta the Tani Avu the Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, now that the father of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak taught, Hamolek of bifnim v'helu b'chutz chayiv, he says that if somebody does malika on a bird inside and then offers it outside chayiv, and molak b'chutz v'hela b'chutz potter, one who does the malika outside and offers it outside is potter, v'Rabbi Shimon mechayiv, and then Rabbi Shimon on that case says chayiv, so then we could say as follows, Rabbi Shimon hasam kai, Rabbi Shimon's actually going on that case. V'tani, and the way that we should learn Rabbi Shimon is as follows. The wording should be as follows: Kol shechayavan ala bifnim. Anytime there's a chiyav bifnim, v'hela b'chutz, and it's offered outside, and there's a chiyav, so chayavan ala b'chutz, one would be chayav outside, and then it would be going on the case of molak b'chutz, v'hela b'chutz, where Rabbi Shimon is saying chayav. And Rashi explains, Shchitas laila behema v'hela b'chutz ika b'nayu. Again, the difference is slaughtering at night an animal. V'chisuri mechsra masnisan b'milsi the Tanakama. Again, according to this answer, there are words missing in the Mishnah and the Tanakama. V'hochi kamer should say as follows: V'chein hashochet behema b'laila b'fnim v'hela b'chutz potter. If one slaughters an animal at night inside the mikdash and offers outside potter, de'ina miskabels b'fnim, because that's not a shchita that would have been accepted inside. T'chsib b'yom zevchachem v'afilu also teired. It says it has to be in the day that it's slaughtered, and in such a situation, even if it went up on the Mizbech, it would come down. For Rabbi Yehudi, that follows Rabbi Yehuda, Damar b'Perek HaMizbech, Prat l'nishchata b'layla, who says in Perek HaMizbech that we exclude a case where it's slaughtered at night. Shachat b'chutz v'hela b'chutz chayev, if he slaughtered it outside and offered it outside at night, then it'd be chayev. The b'shchitas chutz lo shna layla miyom, because the outside, by slaughtering outside, there's no difference day from night. The haroi who love well pesach ol moed l'mocher, because you'll still be able to bring it into the ol moed the next day. Uvahalaso nami chayev, and even when it's offered up, we're going to say chayev. To aksiv v'aleim tomar, we learned that from the pasuk of v'aleim tomar. Chayav al kayotze b'fnim v'hela b'chutz, so then one would be chayev if it's similarly b'fnim and hela b'chutz, meaning v'hashochet b'hema b'layla b'fnim v'hela b'chutz chayev. The argument Rabbi Shimon would be making is that if one slaughters inside at night and offers outside chayev, ki'ilu shochta b'chutz, just like when he slaughters it outside at night. To ha b'fnimim also lo teirid, because according to Rabbi Shimon, even b'fnim, if it's slaughtered at night, if it goes up on the mizbech, it doesn't come down. Islay, that's what Rabbi Shimon holds. B'perek ha-mizbech mekadesh. To katani Rabbi Shimon Omer, ola ainli ela ola ksheira minayin l'rabo shenishchata b'layla. And so essentially the point of the machlokas is whether when it goes up on the mizbech it comes down, again, in a situation where it was slaughtered at night. And Rashi continues, Chutz min hashochet of bifnim v'hela b'chutz. Rabbi Shimon makes an exception in the case where the bird carbon was slaughtered in the mikdash and then offered outside. In that case, we would say potter for the offering outside the Beis HaMikdash, because again, slaughtering the bird in the Beis HaMikdash is nothing. And that's true even though if one would slaughter the bird outside the mikdash, one would be chayiv on offering it outside the mikdash. And Rashi says, Dipnim namim all year, because in this case, if it was done inside, it was slaughtered inside, if it would go up on the mizbeach, it actually would come down to hamiktal katli, because all he's done is killed the bird. Kedamrinan b'hamizbeach mekadesh, like we say in hamizbeach mekadesh. And then the Gemara said, V'chein hamakavel b'chlichol b'fnim v'hela b'chutz potter, that the machlokas between them is if the blood was received in a non-consecrated vessel. So again, if it was received in an unconsecrated vessel inside and offered outside potter, to habifnimim ala yered, because again, if inside, if it would go up on the mizbeach, it would come down. To have a kenishbach dama, would be as if the same thing as if the blood spilled out. For Rabbi Yehuda, and again, the Tanakami here would follow Rabbi Yehuda. The lesleim alu lo yerdu, that doesn't hold, that if it goes up, it doesn't come down. Ela belon v'yotze v'nishchat chutz l'zmano v'chutz l'mekomo v'shekiblu psulin as damo, except for these various disqualifications, left overnight, goes outside the proper area, slaughtered with intention outside the proper time, outside the proper place, received by those who are disqualified, bahanach psulin dechazu la'avoda sibur, those people who are disqualified but that could do avoda for the community. Kedim afarish b'hamizbech mekadesh, as all is explained in hamizbech mekadesh. Rabbi Shimon Omer, and then Rabbi Shimon says to that, to habifnim nami isleim also lo teir. Again, Rabbi Shimon would hold that inside also, if it goes up on the mizbech, in this case of klichol, it would not come down. Ve'afilu nishbach dam, and that's true even if the blood spills. Kedektani hasam, like we say over there. And then finally the Gemara said, V'hashta the Tani avu de Shmuel, now that the father of Shmuel taught Rabbi Shimon mechayiv amolak bechutz v'hela b'chutz, Tani b'milsi de Rabbi Shimon b'masnisin, that Rabbi Shimon says chayiv by malika outside the Beis HaMikdash and then offering it outside the Mikdash. So the words of Reb Shimon you should just change around as follows. Kol shechayavin ala bifnim. If there's a liability, if he does it bifnim, kagon hamolik bifnim v'hamala b'chutz, like he does malika inside and then offers it outside, so then chayavin ala b'chutz. Then he'd be chayav again if he does the malika b'chutz. With the katani seifa chutz min hashochet bifnim u'mala b'chutz. And when it says, with the exception of when he slaughters it inside and offers it outside, adiyuka kai, that's going on the inference that one might have made. De'ikol ameidak mimilsa de Rabbi Shimon, because one could infer from Rabbi Shimon, hakol she'ein chayavin ala bifnim v'hela b'chutz. If you're not chayav inside and offer outside, could go in kodshim psulim like disqualified kodshim, shelo haya psulim v'kodesh, where the disqualification was not in the kodesh, could go in horoveya v'anirba v'chulu, ein chayavin alein im shachtan b'chutz. One could have said, you're not chayav if you slaughter outside of helen b'chutz and offer outside. Ashchitasan lo mechayev de lo karina bevel pesach ol moed lo havio. You're not chayav on the shchita because it's not considered al pesach ol moed. It's not something that could have been brought. V'halosan, and in terms of the offering, mehechetesi, why should we say that you're chayav de lo karina beinami al pesach ol moed lo yavianu? We don't call it al pesach ol moed. Chutz min hashochet of bifnim v'helu b'chutz, with the exception of one who slaughters the bird inside and offers it outside. She'afal bisha poter al halo aso b'chutz, even though he's poter on the offering outside, chayavin al kayotze bo b'shochet b'chutz v'hela b'chutz. He's chayav if he slaughters outside and offers outside. Dois rabboy la'el shchitaso me'o asher yishachet, because we learn the shchita from the pasuk of o asher yishachet v'halaso me v'aleim tomar, and the offering from v'aleim tomar. And so again, you might have thought that's not the case, but we have special inclusions in this case. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Chatas shekibel dama b'kos echad, if you have a carbon chatas and the blood was received in one cup, Nasan b'chutz, if he applies the blood outside the mikdash, v'chazar v'nasan b'fnim, and then applies inside, or b'fnim v'chazar v'nasan b'chutz, he applies inside and then outside, Chayev, he's chayev for applying the blood outside the Beis HaMikdash, Shekulo roy bifnim, because it's all fit to be inside the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore, again, if something is fit to be offered in the Mikdash, there's liability out of the Mikdash. Kibel dama b'shtei kosos, let's say he receives the blood of the chatas in two separate cups. Nasan shneim bifnim, if he applies them both inside the Mikdash potter, he's exempt. Shneim b'chutz, if he applies them both outside the Mikdash chayev, he's chayev for applying outside. Echad bifnim v'echad b'chutz, if he does one inside, one outside, potter, then he's exempt. Echad b'chutz v'echad bifnim, but if he reverses the order, first does one outside, then one inside, then chayev al hachitzon, he's chayev on what he did outside the mikdash, v'hapnimi mechaper, and then the one he applies inside the mikdash ends up being a kapara, it works as an atonement. And the Mishnah says, Lamah davardoma, what is this similar to? Lamafresh chataso v'yavda, let's say somebody separates an animal for a chatas and the animal gets lost, v'hifresh acheres tachten, then he separates a different animal, v'yachar kach nimtzas harishon, and then he finds the first animal, v'harei shtei anomdos, now he has both animals in front of him, shachat shteihen bifnim, potter, if he slaughters both of them inside, he's exempt. Shteihen b'chutz, if he slaughters both of them outside, chayev, then he's liable. Achas b'fnim v'achas b'chutz, if he slaughters one inside and then one outside, potter, then he's exempt. Achas b'chutz v'achas b'fnim, if he first slaughters one outside, then the one inside, chayev ala chitzona, the first one he'll be liable for doing it outside the mikdash, v'hapnim is mechaperes, and then the one he does inside will work as an atonement. And the Mishnah says, Keshem shadama poter es besara, just like its blood exempts its meat, kach hi poteres es besar chaverta, so too it exempts the meat of the other animal. And Rashi explains, Nasan b'chutz v'chazer v'nasan b'fnim chayiv. It says if he first applies outside, then he applies inside, he's chayiv. Kedei nas, but Rashi says this is really there for no reason. It's obvious. Elamishum seifa deboy misni. The reason why we have this case is for the contrasting seifa case, where it's going to say b'fnim v'chazer v'nasan b'chutz. He first applies inside, then he applies outside. V'yashminon, and that part is teaching us da'afagav d'shirayim ninu. Even though what he applied later is really just the remaining blood, mechayev alayo, still he's chayev. Ustamak Reb Nechemia, that follows Reb Nechemia we said earlier, that again on the Shirayim we say chayev. Shneim b'chutz chayev, let's say he applies them both outside, he's liable. Achas, he's liable for one of them. V'im haisalo yadir beintayim, but let's say he had an awareness between, so he did two separate actions, then chayev shtayim, then he's chayev two. Then he's chayev shtayim, he'd be chayev two karbonos. Echad b'fnim v'yachar kach hasheni b'chutz poter. Now if he does it in the following order, that first he applies the blood inside, then he applies the blood outside, so then we say poter, he's exempt. V'afilu Reb Nechemia, in that case he's poter, even according to Reb Nechemia, who says shirayim you're chayev on, kidim efarish b'gemara. Gemara, and this will be explained in the Gemara, to kasavar kos echad oses chavero dichoy, because in this case, when you have two cups, the first cup, that application pushes off the second cup. Hilka chafilo shirayim lo havis, so it's not even in the category of shirayim. And Rashi continues, v'hapnimi mechaper, let's say you have 2 cups of blood and the second one is applied inside, that second one will be a kapara, lahachsher hazevach, and the carbon will be kosher. Keda'amran b'chol hazvachim shenesarvu, we say that earlier, the lo asas hameshuyar kayotze bo, that which is remaining, that cup which is remaining, doesn't have the same status as the first cup, and therefore that second cup that you applied inside the mikdash will in fact be effective. And then the Mishnah said, Lama hadavar doma, what's it similar to? B'gemar mefarish lamali l'damuyinu, umay gamri may hadadi. The Gemara will explain why we need to make this comparison, what we're learning from one another. Shtehen b'chutz chayiv, if you do both of them outside chayiv in the 2 animals, al kol achas v'achas, the b'shah shchita kol achas haisaru yilipnim, because at the time of the slaughtering, each one was fit to actually be brought inside, and therefore if it's shtehen b'chutz, you'll be liable for both. And Rashi continues, achas b'fnim v'ashniya b'chutz potter, if the first one is done inside, the first animal, and the second animal outside the mikdash, then you'll be potter on that second animal. To have a lachatas shekipru ba'aleh, because that's a chatas where the owner already got atonement from the first animal. Well, lemisa azlan, that second animal is supposed to die, ve'ina miskabel b'fnim, and it wouldn't be accepted inside. And again, if something that's not accepted inside, there's no liability outside the mikdash. And Rashi continues, if he brings the bachutz first, then chayiv al chitzona, he's chayiv on the chitzona, da chazi lefnim, you could have brought that inside. Deizu man sheyir tziyakrav, he has an option which animal to bring. V'hapnimis mechaperes ala bailam, and then the one brought inside will be a kapara for the owners. And then the Mishnah concluded, Kashem shedama poter besara min ha'me'ila, it's talking about me'ila over here. Just like the blood exempts the meat from me'ila, tizrikas dam motzia besar katshe min ha'me'ila, the general rule is, once you throw the blood by the meat of katshe kachim, there's no me'ila anymore, because now it's fit to be eaten by the kohanim. Tiyehei ba shas heter lekohanim, now it can be eaten by the kohanim. So kachi poteres as besar chaverta, the same is true of the meat of the other animal. V'afal pi shapsul, even though it's disqualified. Here we're going on the case where, let's say, he slaughtered both animals inside the mikdash. Now you have the blood in cups, and you go and you throw the blood of one of them. The other animal is going to be exempt from me'ila because of the rule that this is now a chatos where the owner already got atonement with the other one. And the halacha is, once you have a chatos that needs to be put to death, so you shouldn't get benefit from it, but there's no me'ila. Aval mishum shchutei chutz lo etzrichalei. We don't need to teach this halacha that there's no me'ila in the cases of shchutei chutz, techeman dechatlinu dami, because there it's already as if they've been killed, v'les behu me'ila, so there is no me'ila. Kedamrina and b'shmaita kamaisa, like we say in the first sugya, in Meseches me'ila, kodshim shemesu, that if you have kodshim shemesu, so then yatsu midei me'ila, kodshim that die, there is no me'ila. And Rashi says, v'agav grora nas b'hocha aidi denakad mishum shchitas chutz. We bring this over here because it's slightly irrelevant due to the shchitas chutz case. Uve perakama de me'ila nami katani lo lekula. In the first parak of me'ila also, we learn all of this, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph.